Hello and welcome to First Impressions. This is a show where every week my co-host Dash Hooper and I evaluate an album we've never heard before, and after playing it, we take notes, rate it in a variety of categories, and let you know our thoughts. And tonight, we're looking at the 1990 album Flood by They Might Be Giants. So, Dash, how are you doing tonight?
I'm ready to review this album because this is fantastic. And I said
All
hello to
right.
everyone.
So he's saying hello. So all right. So we already know your thoughts. I guess I was when I walked in, I guess we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but I thought, all right, I can be pushed either direction on this album. I kind of sit on a fence right now that you
Right.
could topple me over and you could topple me into I need to keep this album, but well, we'll see. We'll see where I land. There's certain songs that I land on. I don't want to hear that again, but that's always the case, but we'll see. Like I said, I'm curious because this one was the first one. I had a lot of trouble processing it. I mean, my notes were pretty small, pretty vague, and I thought, all right, I gotta. This is a good one to have discussion of, where it's not just kind of living in your own head and hearing, justify it. Tell me why I should love this or why I should hate it. So I'm happy to have a discussion with you and see how you can persuade me one way or the other.
Are you sitting in the Grumpy Muppets tonight?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm sitting in the. I don't know where I am. I'm wandering through the desert. I'm the end of Wicked 2. I've been thrown in the Dune Desert and I'm wandering and I
Right.
don't quite know where I'm going to end up. So like
It
I said, I'm not quite
definitely.
grumpy. I have grumpy Muppet moments. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
I can listen. I can totally understand feeling on the fence about this,
Yeah.
and I think I probably because of what we talked about behind scenes, and then in the a little bit in the live show with the
Mhm.
music that I have a bias towards it because of the a certain tie-in, which we'll get to here in a little bit.
Yeah. Our end credits when you watch, we'll have that tie in right there. So
Yeah.
I was able to get that one of those videos and use our own kind of looking through the free music. I'm like, okay, what would be the They Might Be Giants music to fit in? So I'm like, all right, something whimsical with an accordion. There you
Yes.
go.
There you go. But yeah, I can see why a lot of people would be and looking through, and you're going to read most of it, but looking through a lot of the criticisms and critiques
Hmm.
on it, I'm sure I know why. So we'll
Hmm.
yeah.
All right. So, as always, we will start off with a history of the artist. So, They Might Be Giants were formed in 1982 by John Flansburgh and John Linnell, the two Johns. And they were actually friends when they met in Boston High School, but didn't play in bands together. They formed different bands. They went to different schools. They kind of met, were friends, but life carried them in different directions, but then formed a band when they coincidentally in 1981 moved into the same apartment building in New York City on the same exact day. And they didn't know, they didn't coordinate it. It just happened to be that both of them were moving into the same building on the same day. And they kind of reconnected in 1981 and 1982 formed a band and performed under different names. So one of them, they said they would never disclose even to their own children because it was so bad. And the other one was like Un Banda de Rock and Roll or something like that, which just meant a rock and roll band. And they picked the They Might Be Giants name after a ventriloquist that they were friends with said he didn't need the name anymore. So they picked that name, and it was based on a 1973 movie called They Might Be Giants, which I don't know. Have you seen that
I
movie?
have not, but I know that I know that's part of where they got the name, but
Mhm.
I have never seen it, so now I'm going to have to.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie. And then they also got part of it from the Don Quixote
Yep.
poem, which, he sees the windmills and thinks they might be giants. And that is where they kind of from both. But at the time, the ventriloquist was using it. So once he discarded that name, they took it on and it's been with them since. So from 1984 to 1987, they became a house band at the Pyramid Club in New York, and they were building a following there. Kind of like when we talked about Jeff Buckley, he kind of did a residency at one place and built his audience by just playing the same room every single week, and they did the same thing. They played the Pyramid Club, and they started to gain a following. And when they were playing there, they were playing as a duo. It was the two Johns and a drum machine. So in 1983, they had a spell where they weren't able to continue playing because one of the Johns, I think he broke his wrist. I know he broke a bone. And then the other one had his apartment robbed, so they just didn't want to perform. So they created something called Dial-A-Song, where people could call this particular New York number and hear new songs, hear demos, all kinds of different things that they could hear. Just, I don't know if it's free or if it was like a 900 kind of number. I didn't get all the facts on that, and it would have been, before my time, but they finally got one of their, I think it was a demo cassette reviewed, and it got a good review. So Bar None Records signed them, and there they released their first two albums, the self-titled album and the album Lincoln. And they both sold, I think, around 10,000 copies. And for an indie album, that's great numbers.
Yeah.
And they also got played on MTV's alternative programmings. Like there was Alternative Nation and 120 Minutes. And I know they performed live on both of those. They had their song, I think, Don't Let's Start is the song. And that one got played on 120 Minutes. I do remember seeing it on that. But the buzz that they were getting got them signed in 1990 to Elektra Records, which is where they released their first, their third album, which was their first major label album, Flood, which we're reviewing tonight. And since then, they've gone on to release 23 studio albums, including some children's albums. So, they released several children's albums. They won a Grammy for one of those albums, actually. And they've won 2 Grammys altogether. One was for the theme song for Malcolm in the Middle. So I didn't know that was their theme song until now. So when I was doing the research is when I realized, okay, I heard it a million times. I could sing along with it, but I didn't know it was a They Might Be Giants song. And won one of their 2 Grammys, the other one for one of the children's. They've been nominated for a Tony for their work on the SpongeBob musical on Broadway, which I have not seen. Don't think I would. I'm not the hugest SpongeBob fan, so I don't need to go see it on Broadway. But yeah, they have started their quest to the EGOT by getting nominated. I'm sure they could win an Oscar by doing something for a movie. That's not that out of the realm of possibility. I mean, they're still out there making music. I mean, 23 studio albums and still releasing, still touring a lot. So, I mean, they're very active still. So even though their first stuff came out in the 80s, they are still a very active band.
They are. Yes, they are.
All right. So,
Kevin.
And yeah, I guess when we get into our history, we can talk about that. But I guess they'd be one of the few bands I haven't seen play live, and I've seen a bunch, but yeah, I've never seen them as a live band. So, a little bit about the history of the album. So, Flood is the third studio album by They Might Be Giants. It was released on January 15th, 1990. And it's on this album, you see the band expanding their sound. They brought in additional instruments. They had a lot more that they could work with because now they had all the tools of a major label instead of an independent label like they had started with. And they played around a lot with different sounds. They were doing percussion on refrigerators and all kinds of crazy things. It would fit right at home with Wilco when we were talking about them. Banging on toy pianos and everything. They Might Be Giants definitely, kind of started that because Wilco's album was much later, but kind of that everything can be an instrument mentality. They started doing that. So some of the songs were self-produced. I think 4 songs were produced by Clive Langer and Alan Winstanley Winstanley, who had worked with Elvis Costello previously. And their album is known for incorporating multiple musical styles. And you definitely hear that on this album. And regardless of the genre that they use, they were known for unconventional lyrics, bizarre cleverness. Kind of, you have dark lyrics and bouncy music kind of juxtaposed together.
Yep.
And it's got plenty of that in there. There's all kinds of styles. There's unreliable narrators and, you know, crazy wordplay. So yeah, once we dig into the album, all of that's there on this one. And this particular album is their only album to be certified platinum. And as we were saying before, it has 2 songs animated on Tiny Toon Adventures, which was during the 90s. It was kind of, if you don't know it, it was the Looney Tunes characters, but they were kids. So you had like a Daffy Duck kind of character, a Bugs Bunny kind of character, a Tasmanian Devil character. And they animated these 2 songs, Particle Man and Istanbul, Not Constantinople, on the show, and just made it basically like a music video, but with the Tiny Toons. And you have, I think it was Dizzy Duck just getting pummeled in Particle Man. He's just getting beat up by different people. So, yes, that's the basic history of the album and of the band. So, anything to add? Did you find anything I missed?
No, I mean, you cover, I mean, you know, when you do those searches and your research and things like that, I mean, you covered it. What I'll add will be more into my my overall thoughts, I think, is
okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always, you know, the Cliff Notes version, unless it happens to be a band that I've read a book about or that has full podcast broadcast about them. So this one I found one podcast, one of my go-to ones, the 60 songs that explain the 90s. And he was covering Birdhouse in Your Soul and kind of gave a history, but not much deeper than what I did, you know, just kind of that they came up playing the club scene in New York and were definitely a contrast to a lot of stuff that came out in the 90s, but Flood kind of predates Nevermind, which that kind of changed the soundscape of the 90s. And that's where it gets, where you were talking about how 90s albums all sound the same. Well, this one definitely doesn't fit into that category in the same way that Neutral Milk Hotel doesn't sound like a 90s album that you would call your stereotypical ones. Those are your outliers that were going on in the 90s. There's plenty of those, but then there's plenty of, you know, the Seven Mary Threes and bands like that that are just Pearl Jam clones out there. So yeah, there's a lot of repetitive sound of the 90s. They might be giants. Love them or hate them, they are not a repetitive sound of the 90s.
What I like this is, well, at least with this album, that you still kind of get that 80s alternative, you know, that late 80s alternative before it was the 90s. So I think you're still still having a unique sound before everything started sounding the same. But yeah, I don't know.
I think that's when you hit, it's really the pre Nevermind 90s and the post Nevermind 90s. Right. Even though Nevermind is not wholly original, it, you know, you can hear they're taking straight from the Pixies and other bands like that. So John, you're going to see them next month. Very cool. I've never seen them. They're one of the few bands that are in my list of bands I need to go see, but haven't done it yet. So yeah, they're not doing a California date for a while. I know they did one this time last year because one of the people that runs on my relay team is a big fan, and they actually went to the concert the night before our relay, where we had to go, I think it was like a 5 a.m. start, and they're out after a concert. Not that I haven't done the same, and I'm not going to be going. I'm going to a concert after a 36 hours of no sleep because that's what I do. And you know what? I'll sleep later. But yeah, that's cool, John. And let's dig into now our history. So what is your history with this band?
I mean, I knew of them. Again, this was, you know, this album was when I was in school, but I was more, I knew of them more of the from like we said, the Tiny Toons, and it wasn't
Mhm.
until after that I really started listening to them more. So I never got to hear their first few albums.
Yeah.
And then I had a friend that when I was in the military with that loved They Might Be Giants.
Mm.
So
Okay.
um, that was my history with them, and knew that they'd
Mhm.
done, like you said, they've done TV shows, they've done kids albums, and
Yeah.
they've just this is a band that's is whether they're out touring or not, they still stand the test of time for me.
Yeah, I mean, and they've been doing it for a long
Yeah,
time. I
a
mean,
long
80,
time.
82. I mean, granted, there were no albums in 82, but
Right.
still, we're talking mid 80s for album releases and still dropping albums. So
Yep.
they remain relevant. And now there's the Malcolm in the Middle reboot that's coming out on Hulu, which will get that song back into people's minds. So
Yep.
yeah, it's interesting. And I know they did a song for Coraline as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, they're definitely an interesting band. So yeah, my history, I don't have much. I mean, I knew of a few of their songs. I kind of knew the Tiny Toons ones, but never really sought them out.
Right.
So I mean, for better or worse, they just weren't one that I looked for. I mean, I knew of them. I've how can you not, especially if you're listening to a lot of the underground and indie stuff because they've been around in that scene forever. I mean, they had their few major label releases, and then you have to wonder if the major label signed them, like, what the heck did we just sign? It's like we were not prepared for this. We gave you all the money of a major label, and then you make this album, and I can't imagine they were going crazy. But it did have a couple moderate hits, so really, I guess
It went
they can't
platinum,
complain.
so
It did go platinum, and it took a long time to go platinum. I think its initial release it was gold, but through time, and especially through retrospective
right.
reviews, which I didn't get into, we'll have to go back to that. We'll go backwards to a segment, but through the retrospective reviews is where it's really grown. So reviews of the album when it first came out were mixed.
Yeah.
There were, I would rate them fair to good. Some of them rated it like 3 to 4 stars. Rolling Stone did not love it. They gave it 2 stars. They thought it was too precious and cute for its own good. That quirkiness was its best, its greatest strength and its hugest weakness. Now, retrospectively, they've gone and named it one of the best albums of the 90s, as they do. They like to
They do.
backtrack. It's
I
like we're still not letting them off the hook for not being a positive review on Stevie Wonder and songs
there's
when they threw songs in the key of life and called it bloated and
forwarded.
overdone. It's like, all right, Rolling Stone, now you call it your greatest album of all time. Is that how you do it? So yeah.
So
Hey.
this is like we said, this is 1990 when this album dropped. Rolling
Mhm.
Stone is still hung on like the hair bands and the we're getting into now. We're really starting to see a different take in music and genre. I mean, they've been around, and alternatives have been around, but your main,
Mhm.
like you said, we couldn't see it until we saw it was on 120 minutes or things like that. That
Yeah.
was late at night on MTV for the most part, or at a
Yeah.
time when So Rolling Stone just irritates the crap out of me sometimes when they do their reviews,
Oh
because
yeah.
this was a step in the right direction for music.
Yeah, they did not love it, but we are talking the magazine that famously hated the first Black Sabbath albums. I mean, ripped them up. They didn't do stars back then, but
No.
he was calling it generic garbage. And these are, two pivotal albums of all time of the heavy metal genre. And they famously hated them. They didn't like the earlier Led Zeppelin albums, which, in my opinion, the early ones are the only ones you actually want to play.
Right.
And they ripped a lot of people that now they probably look back and think, man, if we had a time machine, we would go slap the author of that article and tell him, do not publish this because we're going to look like idiots, 30 years from now. So that's another one. It's, it's in their top albums of the 90s, but they famously hated it. And that you can try to hide those reviews because if you go to the Rolling Stone website, it's not there and easy to find. If you type in They Might Be Giants Flood, instead you get, it's the praising version of it. You have to do a little deeper dive to find the reviews that didn't like it. But Pitchfork redid it, or did a review retroactively, because they didn't exist in 1990, and they gave it an 8.5. So it rated high on the Dewey Decimal of Pitchfork.
Yeah.
And of course you can't read it without paying, and I just read the first couple paragraphs, but they kind of praised it for its quirkiness and its attempt to be different in the 90s. And you're right, it definitely has a feel of the 80s still. You can tell that it may be 90s, but it's still kind of those last lingering feeling of the 80s, which really didn't die until we hit Nevermind. That was what kind of slammed the door on the 80s and brought in that 90s sound. At that point, it was still very 80s sounding up until we hit Nevermind, and then all things changed. But yeah, the reviews I did find, it's not on Metacritic. AllMusic gave it 80%. So Pitchfork, at the moment, of the ones I've found, is the highest review that I was able to get. NME, which is, as we've talked about, that's kind of the British version of Rolling Stone, gave it 80 as well. Q Magazine, also 80. So those were the ones I could find. And on Rate Your Music, which we found out when we interviewed our Shallow Water interview, he was telling us about that, and it's a 3.7 on there, which seems like everything hits like a 3.7 on Rate Your Music, but that is purely done by fans. There's no magazines or anything that are incorporated into that. So that's just purely by fans. And when I was reading through them, some were giving it 5 stars, some were giving it 1 star, saying, "What is this? People tell me I should like it, but I hate it." But you're dealing with people also trying to troll. They're doing it for fun. Like, I'm going to drop a 1 star and get people all angry. So, it's that one you take with a grain of salt. It's like reading a subreddit where people like to just cause a little chaos. But overall, yes, pretty medium reviews when it came out, and then through the years it's grown. But I think between the two albums, Lincoln and Flood are considered their two strongest.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that when I looked into it are ranked 1 and 2, but they're flipped a lot. So Lincoln would be the next one I guess we would need to check out. But I know people who love them, they still love even their newest material. So those who love them are there for life. All right. So now we've already done our history. So now, overall thoughts. What were your overall thoughts on this one?
This is where I sell you, right? No. I mean, for me, I guess because I already love They Might Be Giants because of their their later stuff and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I had a bias towards Particle Man and Istanbul, or not Constantinople.
Yeah,
I loved it. So it's this is almost like a book. You're almost listening to a book because you have all these different little stories. And yes, you might get some interludes with 1 word or 2 words, but you get almost like a book of how, and I liken it to the way I write. It's whimsical, it's witty, it's funny, but it's still got somber moments, and it's got poignant moments. And I love that and when I say it's like a book, you're getting history. I say history lessons, but you get a little bit of history, you get a little bit of everything out of this book or this song or this album. And it's just, and then the silliness brings it to life. Like I said, I mean, here we are, in the 90s. I'm getting ready to graduate, but I can still enjoy watching some Tiny Toons and seeing and hearing these songs. You're just like, wow, those are really cool. And so overall, this album just hits everything for me. It hits all the different. I mean, you almost get all the genres of music in mixed in. You got polka, you got rock, you got a little bit of country in there every once in a while. You got some
little reggae dub. I heard that.
Yeah, reggae dub. And I think that just shows that they were kind of ahead of their time to me, anyways. I could be, I may be
Yeah.
wrong, but to me, I think they were ahead of their time,
Hmm.
and I think this album set music in the right direction. And I
Hmm.
think people maybe not so much copied them, but were inspired by them to take different and steps and take some chances in their music.
Yeah, I gotta look it up. My daughter, when we were playing it, she said there was one band, oh, Tally Hall, which is they're kind of later but underground, and she at first thought it was a Tally Hall album. So there's a band that
There you go.
definitely. Oh, someone's ringing the doorbell. Lovely.
It's-
All right. Well, there's other people in the house. They'll get
You
it.
got packages.
Yeah, I'd guess so. There's Amazon saying hello. So, yeah, she mentioned Tally Hall, and I listened to some of the Tally Hall songs and definitely can hear that influence
Yeah,
that they
influence.
influenced them later on. So, yeah, for me, my first thought was it made me feel like when I was a kid. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a show called the Dr. Demento Show.
Yes.
And Dr. Demento would play kind of just weird, quirky, parody kind of stuff.
Hmm.
That's the first place I heard Weird Al, and then Fish Heads and all that kind of wacky stuff. And it was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was Sunday evenings that the Dr. Demento show would be on. And I would always sit and listen to that with my dad. And when I started playing this album, it kind of brought me back. It made me think, if some of these songs had been played on Dr. Demento, this would have been my favorite band. Like
Yeah.
they would have solidified themselves because I would have discovered them as a 7 or 8 year old. And I think we were listening to that as long as I can remember. We would tune in Sunday nights to hear that Dr. Demento show. So as soon as I heard it, it gave me those kind of vibes where it's just kind of bouncy, quirky, fun. But the more you dig into it, the more, to me, it felt like this is, even though these bands don't align themselves to the same timelines, it felt like the love child of Weird Al and Cake.
That's
So
pretty good. That's pretty good.
if you think of Weird Al, he brings that bouncy, fun, but Cake brings that cynicism.
Yeah.
That Cake has what you think on the surface is they're kind of the jesters, but they're cynical. They want to slaughter the king. I think one of the interviews I heard with the singer from Cake, that's essentially what he said. Is like the jester seems like they love the king, but if he had a chance, he'd slaughter him behind the scenes. So you get this that dark, that hidden cynicism of Cake, even though Cake came after them and Cake was probably influenced by them,
Most
but
definitely.
the bouncy music of Weird Al. So that's where it took. My first time listening to it, I didn't know how I was going to process it, but it gave me flashbacks to Dr. Demento and just kind of, like I said, Weird Al and Cake's Love Child. That's what we're listening to. So yeah, I was sitting on the fence, and this one, I also didn't get as many listens as I normally get because I was doing a con this weekend, and that just kind of gobbles up your time. And what I don't want to do is play my first listen while I'm driving somewhere,
Right.
because you can't give it your full focus. My first listen always needs to be sitting on the couch and just feeling it, as an album, not as a distracted album. And I didn't buy the vinyl. The vinyl might have lyrics or everything, but when I was going to get it, it was just not going to be available in time for the show. Maybe something I get later, but at the moment I had to just find it out there and play it on Spotify, which did have lyrics. So at least there's that. All right. So now we will dig into our next category. What were some of your favorite songs on this one?
Listen, if you're not dancing to almost every one of these songs, I
Hmm.
question your sanity, people. Like people will say Birdhouse in the Soul is probably the best song on that. No, Particle Man, Istanbul's not Constantinople are really, really good. And um, I like Dead.
Mm-hmm.
So Birdhouse in Your Soul, uh, Dead, Particle Man is just fun. It's a fun song. It's not like it's not award winning. There's nothing, but it is bouncy and it gets you going, and you can dance with your daughters while they're listening to it with you. And and then the it's weird, but I do like Men and Women.
Mm,
It's nothing award winning, nothing to write home to your significant other. It just it's fun. It's a bouncy little what minute and a half, maybe
yeah, I
barely
think
two.
those are we have that stretch at the end where everything's 130, 140. There's a string of songs that are very short and kind of
It,
get to the point
yeah,
quickly.
they're almost like little essays. Like I feel
Mhm.
like short little to the point. But I liked it. But yeah, the main you got your main songs. Um, those are probably my tops.
Okay.
I love it was I even like the little intro to their saying this is their album of 1990. I like that little intro. It just
Yeah.
I at no point did I ever just go I am just tired of any of these songs. So
Yeah. All right. So I mean I had a couple. I definitely had some skips on this one. And yes, I know.
yeah,
How
I
dare
know.
I? I got to live up to my guys here. So once in a while, but I mean, it's not like I'm coming at it. This isn't Joe
No,
Walsh. I'm not coming at it with knives out. So I'm gonna have a few songs that I don't enjoy, and people might love them and tell me why I'm wrong, and that's okay. You are always free to inform me while I'm wrong, as long as you write at least 3 to 4 paragraphs. And we don't accept your short hate is never accepted here. All right. So for mine, I had The Birdhouse in Your Soul, which is sung from the point of view of a nightlight singing to a child. And I think structurally, I'd say it's the most well constructed pop song on the album,
right.
where it doesn't get into some kind of the goofiness that some of these other ones do. It's still, I mean, it's a boy, it's a nightlight singing to a child. So
Yeah.
it is still wacky in their sense, but it's not as kind of just straight ahead silly as something like Particle Man. But I think it's a great song. It's one that I did know before this because I remember in the show, gosh, what was it? See, I knew it last week, and now that I'm on the spot, I can't think of it. But it was used in a show that I watched, and that was the first time I heard that one. And it was about the pie maker who could reincarnate people for a second to solve their murders. And if you know the name, help me, because I just went fully blank, as I
I'm
do
looking it up.
when we're on the show. I can't think of any damn names, and when I'm sitting if I was sitting on the couch right now, I'd have thought of the name 10 minutes ago. But Pushing Daisies. There we
Pushing
go.
Daisies.
Yeah, so it was on Pushing Daisies, and that was the first time I heard that one. And yeah, I liked that one a lot. Lucky Ball and Chain, I thought that was kind of a fun one. It's a polka country jam,
Yeah, it's
and
fun.
it's one of those things where the lyrics are fun, but they show the loss the man feels, and we can imagine that if it were sung in the woman's point of view, it would be a thank God I got rid of this dope. So he's writing it from his perspective. And, even though he's trying to get sympathy, he keeps breaking that sympathy. And when we get to the lyrics, I'll talk about that. But I just thought it was kind of funny because the lucky ball and chain, lucky being the woman who got away, is what I'm kind of thinking. So she's lucky to be rid of him. And then Dead, I did like that one. And that one is about a narrator looking back on his life of regret as he's now been reincarnated as a bag of groceries.
Bag of
Which
groceries.
that one absolutely feels like a Dr. Demento song. The kind of song that would have fit right in on Dr. Demento, and I would have been, laughing at it as a kid, just thinking this guy lives as a bag of groceries because he tormented his brother and did all these things he shouldn't have done. Now his fate is to live as a bag of groceries. So
I knew
yeah,
you love this album. You can't fool me. You love it.
there's like I said, there's stuff I didn't like, but it's not the album collectively. It's just a
Right.
few songs, and
Yeah.
it depends unless you're dealing with super short ones. But this has 19 songs, so
Yeah, 19.
it's easier to find something skippable on a 19 song album. And then I liked They Might Be Giants in the tradition of
Yes.
Lady Gaga and Bad Company naming themselves in their song. they're doing this one, but I felt like this one, if they ever did make the Saturday morning cartoon show of their own songs, which they absolutely could. We've seen it done in Tiny Toons twice, very successfully, I'll add. Where I love Particle Man, where the Porky Pig one, I forget the name of all the Tiny Toons. Hampton is just kind of, he's saying the lyrics, but he's saying them all kind of like, he looks all depressed and monotone as he's going through it. And it's just so funny that they do it that way. And I thought, okay, they're already setting up like they could create their own Saturday morning cartoon, and They Might Be Giants would be the one that could be their theme song. They've written their own theme song for a Saturday morning cartoon that doesn't exist. And the guitars in the middle sounded like the Spider-Man theme to me. So I heard that, and I like when they might be giants, boy, and they just kept doing that. I just thought it was fun. So there was at this point, I thought it was a pickup because I was beginning to lose patience with a few of the songs, and this one brought me back in. So yeah, I liked, those were the ones I had picked.
It closes out pretty good. So
yeah I'd say it finds its way. So so strange but not unpleasant. Yeah, strange would definitely sum it up. Pops has had to hear the unpleasant when he's played the song playthroughs, and I was glad you were able to do that, because for me and my work schedule, it doesn't work for me to get home and start, especially if an album's longer where it's going to be over an hour. I just can't do it. So I can pop in like I did today, but if you get it playing, that works. And yeah, if you're able to do it on Spotify, that's the best way, because you avoid the commercials.
I will do that from now.
And I just did a share screen on Spotify, so get rid of the ads, because don't let someone else get paid for us playing their music. Especially because the band's not the one getting played. It's some other dude. So, yeah. Let's dig in now to the best lyrics. So, what are some lyrics that stood out to you on this one?
So, let me get my new tip here. And, I mean, like I said, Particle Man, I just love that you get all the different, Particle Man does the thing that a particle can. That's funny. But let me pull up.
It does whatever a spider can, because they say they based that one on the Spider-Man theme. Where the other one I heard it on They Might Be Giants, I kind of heard the guitars of it, but they said that one was thinking like Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. So it's a Particle Man, and just they kind of did it in the vein of Spider-Man. So I love that they took they sound like they belong on on an 80s Saturday morning cartoon, and then they gave their homage to one of the 60s cartoons out there.
This would have fit on like the Bozo their songs would have fit on the Bozo show. And kids variety, like you said. Dr. Demento's perfect. Kids variety shows are perfect. Saturday morning cartoons, all of these. I'm a lot of them. I love Dead. Here, he goes, I did not apologize for when I was 8 and I made my younger brother have to be my personal slave. Did a large procession wave there, did a torches as my hand fell in the basket. I love Dead. And then I returned as a bag of groceries, accidentally taken off the shelf. I mean, who comes up with this stuff?
Yeah, that's just some silly stuff.
Yeah,
and I love it. That was one I had on my list, because it's so absurd, and it just would have fit right in when I was listening to those kind of songs when I was playing Dr. Demento as a kid. I mean, this whole album could have been played on the Dr. Demento show, honestly. There certain ones maybe not as much, but I think they all could fit thematically into that, even if just for their kind of bounciness, because a lot of those songs on Dr. Demento were pretty cynical, hidden behind the bouncy. A lot of them were kind of polka, from what I remember. It's been so long since I played that, but that was a staple of my childhood, just listening to that with my dad, where it's one of those things where I want to give my dad this album and see if it does the same thing to him. Like, hey, remember when we would just relax and listen to Dr. Demento on a Sunday night? And does this bring you back? So this album definitely brought me back to that time and place.
So I was paying better attention. It would have been fine. I was making, so I get you. Just say it was fine.
It was. He gives it our certified Megoat. So he gives it the Megoat from Pops. So yes. He does not hate it. He does not love it. That is where the Megoat lives. He does not live in a place of hate. He does not live in a place of love. He lives in a place of it rolled right off me like water from a duck. All right. So, Dash, any other lyrics you have on this?
Yeah, and then we'll talk about Birdhouse in Your Soul.
Yeah, I got some from that one.
I love the chorus on this. Blue Canary in the
Mhm.
outlet by the light switch. Who watches over you? Make a little birdhouse in your soul. But the best part of that, and I still say this. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. I say that
Mhm.
all the time. Say I'm the
Ah,
only bee in your bonnet, and it came from that album or that song, and I just love that little
yeah.
line right there. And I mean, we could like a lot of their songs. Istanbul's, I mean, it kind of repeats itself.
Yeah. And
Those
that
are
one's a cover, so I didn't grab
yeah.
the lyrics from that one, knowing
Yep.
that it's a cover. And the original version, I'm sure, did get played on Dr. Demento.
Oh, it would not
That
surprise.
is the kind of song that would have been played, and I'm sure it did. It's just, trying to remember a playlist from a show I listened to when I was super young would be impossible. But if that one didn't get played on Dr. Demento, I would be fully shocked.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why I didn't bring that one up because again, it's cover. It's everybody's probably heard it at some point, but again, it's just you got like I said, you get a little history in your album there.
Yeah. Yeah. So that one, I like I said, I would have to go back and see because I'm sure someone out there has archived the Dr. Demento stuff and recorded
Yeah.
them off the radio. And if that original version didn't get played, I would be very shocked. All right. So any other lyrics?
Nah, that's I mean, we could be here
Yeah,
all
I'm sure
night
I'll
and
get in. I'm sure I'll get into some of them. So I'm going to start right there with Birdhouse in Your Soul as well, where he's saying there's a picture opposite me of my primitive ancestry, which stood on rocky shores and kept the beaches shipwreck free.
talking
Though
about
I respect that a lot, I'll be fired if that were my job. Or I'd be fired if that were my job after killing Jason off and countless screaming Argonauts. Bluebird of friendliness, like guardian angels, it's always near. So he's, looking at a picture of a lighthouse across from him and imagining, yeah, it's kind of the same thing, but I would not have been good enough because of, night lights, not like a lighthouse. So he would have killed Jason and all the Argonauts. So I love that one. Lucky Ball and Chain, where it says she threw away her baby doll. I held on to my pride, but I was young and foolish then. I feel old and foolish now. And then when he sticks into now, confidently, she never called me baby doll. Confidently, I never had much pride. But now I rock a bar stool and I drink for two, just pondering this time bomb in my mind. So, first he's saying she threw away her baby doll, but actually she never called me that. And I held on to my pride. I never had any pride. So he keeps contradicting himself. And you have that unreliable narrator basically trumping over, he's going over his own words and saying, actually, that's not true. So I love how that song kind of keeps playing with it, where he says what he thinks, the truth in his brain, then actually, no. So I thought that was a lot of fun in that one. And then Your Racist Friend, which is actually one of the more serious songs on
serious
the
song.
album,
Yeah.
where he says, out from the kitchen to the bedroom to the hallway, your friend apologizes. He could see it my way. He let the contents of the bottle do the thinking. Can't shake the devil's hand and say you're only kidding. So that one, even
I
though it
almost
sounds whimsical, that one is like the most serious lyrics that are lurking
I
on this album.
I almost feel that's autobiographical.
It is. I did look that one up, and it is an autobiographical song of a party that they went to, and someone was spouting a bunch of racist stuff and then trying to say, oh yeah, yeah, don't worry, I was just drinking too much and I don't
Yeah.
mean any of those things I said. So they wrote that one, and that one is one of those ones that juxtaposes itself, where
And
it's got that whimsical music, but the lyrics get a little darker and more serious. And like you said, with it being autobiographical, you get that in there. And yeah, I like how that one was. I had Twisting,
it
or actually no, I didn't have Twisting. That was my last of the lyrics. We're
let
in
me
my
let me
next category now. So
let me
anything
let me
else you
add
want to throw in there?
yeah with your racist. They always say that that nice little Latin phrase.
Mhm.
What is it? In veritas or in vino in veritas or un vino veritas
Mhm.
in truth in wine there is truth.
Yes.
I messed up my Latin. It's been 100 years since I took Latin, ladies and gentlemen. So but yeah, yeah, there's no excuse for that. Just
Yeah, in wine there's truth, because whoever the racist friend was who exists in the real world, the wine comes out, he's like, oh yeah, never mind, it was just
Yeah.
because I was drinking. Which,
okay, that's not an excuse.
we've seen that in real life with real celebrities, and then they'll try to pretend that it was because they were drunk. I'm not naming names, we're not trying to go there, but it shouldn't take you that much time and effort to figure out that some people have done that. Well, I was really drunk excuse. And sorry to say, if you're spewing racist, hateful things, it's not the alcohol, it's the like you said, in wine, the truth.
Yeah.
So, all right, we will get to our next category. Skip this one. Any ones that you're gonna skip on this album?
While and they're little, again, they're the little 50-second, and like minimum wage. I get it. It's kind of a filler. I don't know if they, because a lot of their songs were really 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and I think the longest was like 3.5.
Yeah.
And I feel like the record company wanted them to have a certain amount of time on this album, so I'm sure there were some little fillers in there. So minimum wage, I'll pass on, and I'll pass on theme from Flood.
Yeah, I had Women and Men in there. I mean, it's so small. It kind of it doesn't stick around long enough to be offensive. But yeah, it's still got to go. But yeah. Let me see. What else did I have? Just grabbing my notes. Twisting. I did not like the surf rock vibes. I've never liked surf rock, so that's just my personal bias. And it's, supposed to be the juxtaposition again, the dark lyrics and the whimsical music, but I just, having never really enjoyed surf rock in any form, it, even the whimsical form just doesn't grab
don't
me.
Like surf rock or yacht rock? What?
Yeah, keep me out of the oceans. That's the rule.
This is news to me.
Yeah, surf rock, pass. Yacht rock, pass. Anything that involves the ocean, I don't think there's any ocean rock I like. Maybe there's some kind of water rock that I haven't discovered yet, but in general, keep my rock on the land.
Right.
So, yes, no yachts, no surfing. Pass on all. That's why I'm not a huge fan of early Beach Boys stuff. When we covered the Beach Boys album, we did Pet Sounds, which was when they kind of had their change. But the early Beach Boys, I mean, mind you, I had that destroyed at WonderCon because they played the loop of Beach Boys songs that made me want to never hear them again in my life. But I didn't love it to start. So you took something I didn't like and then you drowned me in it. So yeah, not the best. And then Hotcha, I didn't love it. It was kind of it was short, mediocre, and that's where I was feeling musically, lyrically, both were they were on my nerves for that song.
You might have there's some people I guarantee would probably have turned the entire
album. That is a get up and move the needle moment if it weren't so short.
Yep.
The fact that it's so short, I'm just like, 90 seconds, I can tolerate it. If it went on any longer, I would get up and move it. Women and Men, I like the song, but the chorus was paining me. How poorly sung the chorus was. And I'm sure he meant to do it, but it was nails on chalkboard bad. I don't need that. I
felt like that was very much intentional. But I think that's why
absolutely.
That's why I liked it, though. Because we talked about it. It's still, you're kind of just bebopping with it, but it's not another. It's another minute and a half? I mean, barely a minute and a half.
Short one,
the short one. So I tolerated
it. It wasn't terrible, but as soon as it got to the chorus, I was like, "Oof, you're killing me on this one." I feel the pain of poorly sung chorus, but like you said, definitely on purpose, and that's the only thing I'm skipping. Like we can sing the chorus better and I'll be fine with the song. It's so short, and it's not like Hotcha that I'm just like, oh man, if this thing even went on another 15 seconds, I'm moving that needle. But at the moment I don't have the vinyl. I mean, that doesn't mean I won't get it, but yeah, that would be one where it's just okay. I don't need that.
I'm getting it just for the cover.
I love the cover.
Really enjoyed the cover on this one.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's lyrics or not. I think, I think retracking it, I think They Might Be Giants would have been a really good closer. I think putting that
Yeah.
as the final song would have, when it ended, I thought the album was over, and I'm like, wait, there's one more song. That's just misplaced because it's a
Or,
perfect closer to the album.
I feel like the Berlin song really, the Road to Berlin, or whatever it's called.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it gives you some false hope, or false. I don't want to say false hope. False pretenses that the song is, or the album is over. And then it picks right. It does a real quick stop, and then it's back into the song
Yeah.
again. So it gives you a little bit of false pretenses that it's about to end.
Yeah, I think you
So,
could take that song, replace Minimum Wage with that one in the middle of the album, and then close it out with They Might Be Giants, because that is just a perfect closer. And
yeah, it really is.
especially for them, it's kind of like, all right, here's our statement of who we are, and it kind of starts with the introduction to the album, and then if it ended with that, I think it would have been a perfect closeout. I think the way they close it now, that song could be thrown in the middle, because Minimum Wage, with its kind of like Western vibes and its whip and all that, you could hear the wagon trains moving, but
It's
it
your country.
it doesn't need anything. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't bring anything to the album. It's just, okay.
It has.
We looked it up, and on the previous show, we discovered that in 1990, minimum wage was $3.80. I mean, it doesn't matter, but I just was curious. I'm like, okay, what was minimum wage? And that's why we have the whip, because damn it, it sucked to make minimum wage back then. Still sucks to make minimum wage, but it's not $3.80 anymore.
Just think about what my first, at my first check as an airman basic in the Air Force was. My very first paycheck. It was not
Yeah.
a whole heck of a lot. Yeah, but minimum wage has my favorite lyric on it.
Yeah.
Minimum wage.
The only lyric, yes. So there we go. Best lyrics of all, minimum wage. Need we say more?
No, yeah, it definitely can go. So yeah,
that song could get taken out. You move a little shuffling, and I think we've tracked it better.
Yeah.
Closing it out with They Might Be Giants is just the perfect ending, and then
I agree.
The song coming after, just all right. Nope, you already ended it well, and now this is extra, and we don't need it unless you throw that one as a hidden track where, okay, you got to go through 2 minutes of silence, and then you get to there's a track hiding in there, and that again, I think would have worked better.
Again, I listened to this on Spotify and YouTube. I asked that question in my notes actually, and I'm glad you brought. I wonder if that really was a hidden track, because
it would have made more sense.
I think it, because that was about the time we started getting hidden tracks on CDs and stuff. So I wonder. That's a good point.
Yeah, if you're out in the comments, let us know if you owned an original copy. Was it a hidden track? Did you have to wait through 2 or 3 minutes of silence? Because it's a short enough album, you could hide it between 2 or 3 minutes of silence. So I'm curious, because it feels so much like a tack on that it could have been that. Now, I think Minimum Wage would be a funnier song to put as a bonus track, because people would think they were going to get something good, and it starts kicking in, and it's just that. You're just like, wait, I waited 3 minutes for that. Damn you. So it'd be kind of like the last laugh from They Might Be Giants. So there you go. Yeah. Take Minimum Wage, put it as a hidden track, so people get excited like they're getting a song, and they get 50 seconds of goofing around the final joke. So that's what They Might Be Giants need to do for that one. All right. So our final category, are we keeping this, or are we returning it to the used bin?
Oh, I'm definitely keeping it. I again, my affinity for They Might Be Giants goes further than just this album. Like I said, it goes to Malcolm in the Middle. It goes to the Kids albums. It goes to Tiny Toons. So definitely keeping it, just for probably because of nostalgia too. Like this definitely hits in the nostalgia range for me. So
yeah. I mean, and I keep it because I think about, like I said, just giving it to my dad as someone when we would sit and listen to Dr. Demento, and it just really brought me back to that. It brought me back to that feeling and that vibe of, sitting on the couch on a Sunday with just the radio on, because I might have had a book in my hands too, because there were no cell phones. There was nothing else to distract you. So it's kind of like I would probably have a book for when it was commercial breaks, so I could sit and read a book, but that was it. It's just, sitting, listening to the radio. listening to goofy songs and laughing at them. This album brought me there. And then, you can't, the nostalgia of something is a powerful tool. And, would I seek it out? Otherwise, you recommended it and I'm glad we listened to it. And it's something I probably would have never sought out. So I'm glad we played it that way, because it definitely brought me right back to when I was a kid, listening to that with my dad, and then just, the goofiness of it. And he even went out and bought the Dr. Demento albums. And I remember playing those in my room with my friends, like, oh, you're never going to guess. This song's about fish heads, or this song's about this or that. And, the 7 or 8 year old kids just giggling at everything. So it brought me back. And it's never bad to get brought back to the time capsule of something like that.
And Dr. Demento will always be immortalized in the Weird Al movie starring Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, I forgot he was in that. And
they portrayed him.
Yeah, they did have him, and it's great that he gets immortalized in that wacky movie. Which, kind of bringing that up, I remember when we were watching the movie, April did not know that it was a parody, and she's like, "What the heck are we watching?" She didn't realize that it was making fun of all those biopic movies. When he's gunning down people with Madonna, and it gets so bonkers, and the accordion is the thing that the cool kids play. So yeah, you got to love that movie. And the fact that they did immortalize Dr. Demento, because he is the one that played him first. And I remember hearing him on Dr. Demento. That is one I can remember specifically hearing on there, because that's what made me love Weird Al to start with. And then you started hearing him on the radio, and I was already, that indie kid, like, I've been hearing him for years. You guys are late to the party. So already strutting around my indie cred just because I heard it on Dr. Demento. So even the 8-year-old me was a snooty indie cred jerk. So yeah, you never outgrow such things.
It's, I mean, I've but we probably should listen to at least, even though we've probably listened to every Weird Al album. I think we should do like have a show where we tribute some of the bands that we love, or albums that we love, or something where we have listened to them, but we want to revisit them or something.
Well, we had talked about that on the Neutral Milk Hotel one, because I would love to cover In the Airplane Over the Sea. It's, it's such an album I love so deeply, but I know it too well to cover it on the show and even pretend I haven't heard it. It would be ridiculous, because I'm like, okay, I know it too well. So we can do maybe something. We have our next batch that takes us into June, and maybe when we hit July, we can do pick 4 of your favorites and let's dive deep.
Yeah, we could do that. Absolutely, that'd be cool.
Yeah, so you can pick your 4, I can pick my 4, and we can kind of dig deep into,
and it might be
unexplored territory for each other.
Listen, it might be a first impression for one of us.
Yeah, I would think so. I think some of them will, some of them may not be, and we could, bring a guest on who loves an album and let them tell us why. So yeah, could be fun, and we'll look at it once we get through with this batch. And of course, I'm always reaching out to bands and hoping to get a few. We have a couple bites on there, but we haven't quite reeled the fishes in yet. But hopefully over the next,
we will,
I guess, 8 albums, we'll be dropping one of ours to talk to a band or two. So with that said, I guess I didn't say I'm keeping it for the nostalgia and the happy memories of sitting there.
Absolutely.
But now, next week, we will be talking about Aretha Franklin. I never loved a man the way I love you. I think it has a couple songs that we can't help but know, but I have never played an Aretha Franklin album from start to finish. So this will be my first time, so it should be fun digging into one of the all-time legends out there. So we are kind of digging into the original diva and see what it's all about, because it'll be interesting. I know that this one ranks in, top 1,001 albums you need to listen to before you die, the Rolling Stone top 500. Yeah. So should be interesting, because I have literally never played one of her albums from start to finish. And the same was true of Stevie Wonder, of Marvin Gaye, when we covered them. So it'll be interesting. And same was true of what's his face, Bob Dylan, and
Bob Dylan.
yet I'm not rushing to hear another one of his albums from start to finish. It didn't move me to go pick up more of his stuff, although I've heard Blonde on Blonde is his best, so maybe one day we'll try that one. But yeah, it did not grab me and say you must hear more. So
Right.
grab our video that we need to play. Where's that at? Is it still in there? Our sponsor video, or is that con over? Because I am not seeing it. What is it called again? All right, I don't see it. If you see it, oh, there it is. I see it now. Sorry. The squinty portion of the show returns, as always.
Coming to Kalamazoo, an event so epic that it must be seen to be believed. A celebration so grand it spans 3 days. Kalamazoo Comic-Con. Join us April 10th through 12th, 2026 at the Kalamazoo Expo Center, 2900 Lake Street, Kalamazoo, Michigan. Doors open Friday from noon to 7 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Sunday 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Meet legendary comic guests like Andrew Petboy, Bart Sears, Bob Hall, Corinne Roberts, Dan Monroe, Danica Davidson, Paul D. Story, Randy Zimmerman, Roger Schultz, Scott Prosema, and Tim Seeley. They're all ready to sign, sketch, and share stories from your favorite comics. And that's not all. Rub shoulders with other special guests, including Blake Foster from Power Rangers, Daniel Logan from Star Wars, Hunter Dino from Power Rangers Dino Fury, Jason Douglas, the voice of Attack on Titan, Megan Shipman from My Hero Academia, Morgana Ignis from Hell of a Boss, Natalie Von Sistine from Dan to Dan, Tiffany Vollmer from Dragon Ball, Young Ye from Like a Dragon, Georgina Leahy, Christina Gailey, Christine McCulfer, Jesse Milo Miles, Kristen Simmons, and the amazing Pink Opal cosplay. Dive into non-stop activities, thrilling panels and Q&As, autograph sessions, photo ops with stars, a massive exhibit hall packed with comics, merch, and collectibles, artist alley showcases, epic cosplay contests, gaming tournaments, kids zones for family fun, and so much more to geek out over. Don't miss this ultimate celebration of comics and pop culture. Grab your tickets now at grcomiccon.com. Prices start low with 3-day passes for the full adventure. We'll see you there, heroes.
All right. So if you're in the area, check it out. Dash and I are not in the area.
Not in the area.
Yeah. But tune in Saturday. I'll be back with Saturday morning comic talk this week with, I think we have 4 people lined up. And yeah, last week I was doing a con, but it started so late I didn't even do a walkthrough because it didn't even start till 11. So that was already hours past our time. But we'll be there. And then next week, of course, we will be back digging into Aretha Franklin. We have a nice lineup of new albums to talk about. So yeah, tune in, don't miss it, and we will see you next week.
See ya.